This is what France looked like all of this week. As you can see, cars were torched, shops looted, public buildings attacked, women and children were attacked too. 2019 was the last time France saw something similar. What happened in 2019 were the Yellow Vest protests. So what has triggered the fresh spate of violence 4 years on? The story began last week on the 27th of June, to be more specific. On that day, a police officer shot a teenager named Nahel. The teenager was driving through Paris. He was pulled over at a traffic stop. Two officers stood on either side of the car and began questioning him. The next thing you know, Nahel's car lurches forward and he is shot dead. Nahel was all of 17. He was of Algerian and Moroccan descent, and following his death, his mother called for a peaceful march. Little did she know that thousands would show up on the streets of Paris and suburban areas in solidarity with the family. Some were protesting police brutality, some were chanting anti-racism slogans, and some were highlighting how systemic racism runs deep in France. In the days that followed, a handful of protesters turned rioters, and then things escalated quickly. Before anyone realized, countries like China were discouraging their citizens from traveling around France.
A
Chinese tour group was affected by riots during the tour in Marseille. The window of the bus they were traveling in was smashed, and several people sustained minor injuries. We once again remind Chinese citizens in France to pay close attention to the local security situation, go out cautiously, stay away from demonstrations and violent conflict areas, and strengthen security precautions.
The houses of two mayors were attacked over the week. On Sunday morning, the house of a mayor was attacked when rioters rammed a burning car into his house. The mayor was at the town hall at the time, but his wife and two children, aged 5 and 7, were at home. They fled, but his wife broke her knee while running for her life. In La Riche, rioters entered the garden of the mayor and tried to torch his car. As we speak, more than 45,000 police officers have been deployed across France. The country was burning all week. Eventually, Nahel's grandmother appealed for peace. Stop rioting, stop destroying, she said, highlighting how the movement has been hijacked by people with vested interests.
Je veux aux policiers qui a tué mon petit-fils. C'est tout ce que je veux. Les policiers, ils sont là, heureusement qu'ils sont là. Et les gens qui sont en train de casser, je leur ai dit arrêtez.
Earlier this week, the French President Emmanuel Macron met 300 local leaders. He discussed the possibility of banning access to certain social media features. The government said that protesters are using platforms like Snapchat, TikTok and Telegram to film and spread violence. And that, of course, led to its own controversy. Some people started to ask the problem, is it really social media or is it systematic racism? And there are no clear, easy answers here. There's no denying that protesters and rioters have taken things a bit too far, in fact, certainly too far. You can't be attacking mayors, you can't be ramming burning cars into their homes. But the government and the authorities are also not absolutely blameless. There has been racism, there has been unnecessary police brutality, and matters look set to continue to escalate. And for more on this, we're now being joined by Anna Elizabeth Moutet, who's a journalist and columnist for the London Telegraph, based there in France right now. Elizabeth, let me just start by asking you, what do you make of the way the situation is, the violence is? Where do you see this headed? Is there going to be a solution in the near future?
I think there could be solutions. I am not sure that this government, Emmanuel Macron's government, is capable of implementing those solutions, because the first things that have been said sound like what happened before in other instances. And the anger in the country is that there's no firmness and no understanding at the same time. we do not have presidential elections again until 2027. So it's either they suddenly become imaginative or the situation is not terribly good.
But of course, tricky questions of who exactly is it to blame in this? Is it people using social media to incite violence? Is it the rioters who've clearly gone way too far? Is it the authorities and the police who often use brutality in the past?
I would say it's like most situations, it is very complex. The French police is not, we have two separate police forces in France. We've got the police and we've got the gendarmerie. The gendarmerie works in the countryside and in small towns. They are a military force. They from their ranks come the elite troops that have been called by foreign governments to help them. And in general, you don't have problems with the gendarmes because they are both respectful and well-trained. The police in the cities in France has increasingly been neglected, like other professions, actually, like teachers, etc. And they are badly trained, badly paid, under attack, and with a feeling that they too are being neglected. And the result is that I wouldn't say that it's statistically, systematically racist, because you've got lots of people of color in the French police. You've got Arabs in the French police and children of Arab extraction. You've got black people in the French police from the West Indies. You always have, and that isn't a problem. But it's more and more the French police has been brutal because it felt cornered, because there weren't enough people, and it's so difficult now to recruit in the police. You have to realize that the French police has got the higher rate of suicides of all French professions. It's because it's a terrible job. You don't get enough support. You then don't get enough training. They need new policemen because lots of people resign. So the training was 1 year and it's gone down to 8 months. And then when you get in difficult neighborhoods, you get attacked with live fire, with mortar fire. And it's not just the police. It's, people will say, oh, but the police is racist. But the firemen put out fires. I mean, they're not racist. It's on fire, they will put it out. And the people who come from first aid, emergency rescue, they also are being shot at and pelted with stuff. I mean, there are instances of very young people throwing away their parents' washing machine on the police in some of the projects. So all of this has made for an explosive situation, and it needed a spark, and the spark was the killing of this young man, Nahel.
All right, Anne-Elizabeth Moutet, thank you so much for joining us with that perspective.